for the lawmaking process. You know, he's got all of these executive actions and orders. You, of course, in the Senate. But what does that do for the work that you do in the Senate? Does that mean that you'll have legislation that supports what he's going to do? Or are you going to try to codify some of these things? How does that whole thing work?
The answer is yes to both, Dan. In terms of supporting it, as you know, the Congress has the power of the power of the purse. And to the extent things need to be funded and supported financially in that manner, we're going to be here to put the resources in place so that President Trump can get these priorities taken care of financially. With respect to codifying some of these things that should never exist, for example, the motive behind all of this is the fact that they count illegal immigrants, illegal aliens in the U.S. Census for the purpose of allocating congressional districts and electoral votes. That's been the motive for the entire time for the Democrats. They're backfilling states like California, Illinois, New York. They put these sanctuary cities there. You think about San Francisco, L.A., Chicago, New York City. All these sanctuary cities are there for is to be a magnet to attract illegal aliens so they can then count them. Because, just living in Tennessee, all the people are moving out of Illinois, California, New York, and states like that. They're moving to places like Tennessee, Texas, and Florida. We've got to kill that motivation. That's going to take legislation to do it.
Senator Bill Hagerty is joining us live, of course, from Washington, D.C. I'm reading that today the Laken-Riley Act will be taken up in the Senate. It passed through the House and it cleared some procedural moves on Friday in the Senate. And now it looks like this might be one of the first actions, if not the first action, that the president signs off on legislatively.
And it's our plan that this is the first action the president signs off on. I think it's actually very demonstrative of our focus on fixing this immigration crisis that Joe Biden has wrought. I mean, you think about the Laken-Riley situation. There's a person that illegally broke into this country, committed crimes in New York City, then goes to another state and commits a heinous murder. All this happens on Joe Biden's watch. They won't even incarcerate these people. That's coming to an end with the Laken-Riley Act. And what it requires is that if a person enters this country illegally and commits a crime, they're going to jail. ICE is going to detain them. We're going to get them out of this country. I can't imagine that Democrats are resisting this, but a lot of them have been. There were a number of them that would even let us move on or voted to try to stop us from moving on to considering this, and then they tried to water it down with the amendment process, but we're moving forward. I think we've got enough Democrats. This is such a common sense piece of legislation. I can't imagine this doesn't pass.
7:09 Nashville's Morning News. I, of course, remember your role, Senator Hagerty, in advocating for and working for hostages being released. Hamas is finally releasing hostages. I think 3 women, Israeli women, have so far been released. They, of course, are seeing their own prisoners being released from Israel. And so what is your reaction so far to the ceasefire and the hostages being released?
Well, I would just say this. The Biden administration has fumbled this thing time and time again. It took Steve Witkoff, President Trump's special envoy for the Middle East, making multiple trips. I'm friends with Steve. He's made several trips to the Middle East to get this thing on track. He's let them know that President Trump wants this resolved. He wants to see it come to an end. I spoke with Steve yesterday. This is just another important step in the process of getting things back to normal and moving forward with the great progress that we made when President Trump was in office with the Abraham Accords. What we've seen is Israel take actions that, of course, the Biden administration recommended against time and time again. Israel took actions to take out Hezbollah in Lebanon. Israel's taken actions to basically clear out Syria now, and they've decapitated Iran's ability to have any sort of air cover. They've completely shifted the power dynamics, and Biden tried to resist that at every step of the way. Now what we have is an opportunity for peace. President Trump is going to support that, and what you're seeing is yet another step in the right direction with the release of these hostages.
You and Senator Blackburn walked Pete Hegseth into his confirmation hearings. We're waiting to see how that plays out. But how did you think he did, and how do you think, by and large, the hearings are going so far?
Dan, Pete did an excellent job. I think for our listeners to know this, Pete's a Tennessean. We're proud that he's a Tennessean, and I think he's going to make a great Secretary of Defense. He's inspirational to the troops. We've got a massive retention and recruitment problem right now. The Pentagon has been more worried about pronouns than they have lethality. Pete's very focused on getting us back into what the Pentagon should be about, and that's making us the most incredible fighting machine in the world, the most feared, most revered. And I've seen some of the notes that people have sent to Pete. He shared those with me. People are thinking about retiring or staying in. Young people want to come into the military again. He's inspirational. He did a great job in his hearing, as have all of the hearings last week. I think most people were very impressed with the caliber of our candidates.
I was really impressed with Scott Turner. You're part of the Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs Committee. I thought Scott Turner did a great job during his hearings. What were your thoughts? Scott Turner for HUD Secretary, by the way.
Yes, he's going to make a great HUD Secretary. He was in the Trump administration before, working in the White House. He has been working on opportunity zones and creating more opportunity, less regulation on the housing market, so that we can get housing prices down. The Biden administration comes in and throws all these regulations that are adding $10,000, $20,000 to the price of an entry-level home. That's restricting the supply. At the same time, the Biden administration is coming in and offering tax credits and government assistance, which increases demand. All that does is bring prices up. Supply that goes down, demand goes up, prices rise. He wants to cut regulations to increase supply. That's the way to deal with this. That's the right approach, and I'm just thrilled he's going to be our next HUD Secretary.
Joe Biden, I'm sorry, I'm looking at some news right now. Joe Biden has granted pardons to Anthony Fauci and the J6 committee members. This happened just a few minutes ago. Do you have any...
Mark Milley as well.
Yeah, and Mark Milley, yes.
Yeah,
any thoughts?
I looked at the press release, and what Biden said, these are the terms that he used, Dan. He's trying to protect them from, quote, unjustified and politically motivated prosecutions. Joe Biden has been the author of unjustified and politically motivated prosecutions. 5 separate lawsuits brought against President Trump. All of them all of them underpinned by Biden DOJ activity, all of that coming to a crescendo just before the election. Biden is the most hypocritical president I have ever heard of to come out and say something like this. He's trying to protect others from unjustified and politically motivated prosecutions when that's all he did to his greatest political opponent.
I know that we've got 45 seconds left with you. Very quickly, Senator Bill Hagerty, how are you spending Inauguration Day?
I will be in the rotunda of the Senate with President Trump, celebrating the 47th president coming back to office and a turn of the corner for America again. It's like a massive sigh of relief across the nation, Dan. People have had 4 years of this experiment with Marxism. It hasn't worked. The incompetence of this administration is going to be over as of today at noon, and we're going to be back on the right track as a nation. It feels so good. All
right, Senator Bill Hagerty, always great to have you on, and appreciate on a very busy day you joining us here on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I especially liked his comments about Fauci and the January 6th committee and those pardons. Unbelievable. I wonder, Trump is supposed to have this tea and coffee with Joe Biden. And based on, I didn't see the press release that Senator Hagerty referenced. How do you sit down if you're Donald Trump and you see that press release and what the current President Biden basically is saying about Trump coming into office? How do you sit down and have a conversation with somebody like that? You know what I mean? Like, I would assume that it's one of those things where, at this point, it's all politics. It's all gamesmanship. Biden is going to say what he's going to say. He is clearly hypocritical. He is clearly, in my estimation and in the estimation of almost every American, the worst president in the history of the United States. And so if you're Donald Trump, I guess you just, you know what? He's got work to do, and he's just going to blow it off. He's going to go through the stupid ceremony of sitting down and having, tea and coffee with Joe Biden, and then he's just got to get the hell out of the way and let Donald Trump do his job. And just Biden is just going to go into the trash heap of horrific presidents that we've seen over the last many years. You've got Joe Biden, you've got Jimmy Carter. Those are clearly the bottom two or the top two when it comes to worst presidents ever. It is 7:15. Time to check the roads on WTN.